The 2025 NBA offseason hasn't been anything too crazy, but we've still seen some pretty big moves. Like Kevin Durant going to the Rockets, Miles Turner leaving the Pacers to join their rival, and also several different players signing for more money than we can even fathom. But some teams have done better than others, and those are the teams we're going to focus on in this video. Every team in the entire NBA has made at least one move, except for the Golden State Warriors, who literally haven't done anything yet. So let's start off with the most obvious winner of the offseason so far, and that's the Houston Rockets. Not just because they were able to get KD, but it's what they gave up for him. It was still a good bid, but not nearly as much as people thought. They only had to give up Jalen Green, who was underwhelming in the playoffs, Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick, and 5 second-round picks. The fact that they were able to keep guys like Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., Reed Shepherd, and Alperen Sengun is huge. They basically kept the whole team that got the 2 seed last season, but swapped out Jalen Green for Kevin Durant. The Rockets still managed to get KD while not blowing up their young core. But that's not all they did. They re-signed like half the team and added Clint Capella, who's still a serviceable big, and Dorian Finney-Smith, who was a big reason the Lakers turned their defense around last season. If those young guys step up, the sky really is the limit for them. The next big winner is the Atlanta Hawks. Over the last few seasons, the Atlanta Hawks have finally been able to start to turn things around. After being stuck in mediocre purgatory for the last 5 or so years, they've begun to make real moves to actually get them over that hump. Despite injuries, Jalen Johnson has been great, Zachary Risache was just taken with the 1st overall pick in last year's draft, Okongwu has gotten better every single season, and Dyson Daniels has reached another level. I mean, he just won Most Improved Player and was 2nd in Defensive Player of the Year while literally breaking NBA records when it comes to steals. Then once you factor in the guys that they've added over the offseason so far, they have a serious roster. So far, they've added Kristaps Porzingis, who's a starting caliber center with championship experience, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who fits the Hawks scheme perfectly, and yet another shooter in Luke Kennard. Not only do they have multiple guys that can stretch the floor, but for once, this team has a ton of defense. And that's exactly what you need on a team built around Trae Young, defense and shooting. Also, the only player under 6'5" is Trae Young. The rest of the team is 6'5" and up. That's actually crazy. They have enough to be competitive right now and in the future too. With how weak the East is right now compared to the West, and with all the injuries to Tyrese, Dame, and Tatum, they could be real contenders. I'm even seeing people say that this could be Trae Young's best season and he could seriously make a run at MVP. The next winners are the Denver Nuggets. After a pretty hectic season last year, and despite taking the championship-winning Thunder to 7 games, it was pretty clear that the Nuggets still needed change. They were able to trade Michael Porter Jr., who's been struggling, for Cam Johnson and the Nets' 2032 first-round pick. Cam Johnson fits with the team perfectly and is honestly a guy that most teams in the NBA would want to have. But again, that's not the only reason I have them as winners. They were also able to bring back Bruce Brown and sign Tim Hardaway Jr. for literally nothing. They were both brought in on veteran minimum contracts. I feel like their value does exceed their contracts, and for the Nuggets, they're very low-risk, high-reward pickups. Bruce Brown was already a part of the Nuggets during their championship run in 2023, and despite Tim Hardaway Jr. not having the best season last year, he's still a really streaky shooter. He's one of those guys that can single-handedly win you a game when he's hot. Not to mention, they were actually able to bring in a backup center in Jonas Valanciunas. The Nuggets needed to make some real moves if they wanted to get back into title contention again, and they were actually able to accomplish that. Next is the Orlando Magic, who made one of the first big moves of the offseason when they traded for Desmond Bane. Yes, they gave up a lot, and I mean a lot, but I really don't blame them for doing it. This Magic team desperately needed a guy like Desmond Bane. They added a 20-point-per-game scorer who's also a 40% three-point shooter to a team that desperately needed shooting. Not only is he a great shooter, but he's also still young and a great leader. Bringing him in as your third option is massive, and he should fit right in with Paolo and Franz. They were also able to bring in Tyus Jones, who's a solid initiator, and their first-round pick Jace Richardson is looking really good in the Summer League. Not to mention, they also just re-signed Paolo to a 4-year $250 million contract. They're looking to win right now, so in their minds, the picks that they traded won't matter anyways, and I'm glad that the Magic are actually taking their shot. Again, especially with how weak the East is right now. Those are the teams that I feel like are the biggest winners so far, but I'll still quickly go over some teams who have made some offseason moves that I like. Plus, if you haven't been able to tell already, I'm more so focused on the new additions and not as much on players getting re-signed. The Thunder re-signing their championship trio is obviously a win, but that's not necessarily my focus, and also the teams I'm about to mention are in no order. Let's start off again with the Clippers, who literally just signed Bradley Beal as I'm making this video. Bradley Beal has been officially bought out by the Suns and is signing with the Clippers for just under $6 million a year. We kinda knew this was gonna happen when they traded away Norman Powell, but now it really happened. Norman Powell had a great year last year, but getting what you can from him and then adding Beal on a super cheap deal is definitely worth it. And we have even more breaking news as I'm editing this video because Damian Lillard was just signed with the Portland Trail Blazers. After a couple up and down years with the Bucks, he's now going back where it all started, and I honestly think that's really cool for both parties. Of course, Dame is a great player, so getting him in general for a pretty cheap deal is awesome, but he also gets to mentor all the younger players. It really is a full circle moment for him, and probably pretty surreal. From being that young guy to being the veteran leader is really awesome, so they're for sure winners in my book. The Bucks are also a team that I would consider winners simply based on the fact that it looks like Giannis is gonna stay. I don't love that they bought out Damian Lillard, and I really don't think Miles Turner is gonna take them to another level, but it's definitely something. Giannis staying and them getting another stretch big that isn't Brook Lopez is definitely a win, especially when you factor in that Dame wasn't gonna play next year anyways. I also like what the Knicks have done so far. They already have a great roster. They somewhat underperformed last season, but that was literally their first year together. They made a lot of big time moves over last offseason, so I'm not surprised it was gonna take some time to gel. The roster didn't need a whole lot of tweaking, yet they still managed to sign Jordan Clarkson, who can still be a really solid scorer off the bench, and Yabusele. They were able to add 2 solid depth pieces while not losing anybody. Plus, we'll see how things go with Mike Brown leading the way instead of Thibodeau. Although the Wizards haven't done anything too crazy, I kinda like what they've done so far as well. They decided to move on from Jordan Poole, which could be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it, but they did replace him with CJ McCollum. And if you know anything about the Wizards, they love to add veteran talent to mentor some of their younger players. And it looks like they're going all in on the young guys they have right now and focusing on building a new culture around them, which based on the most recent years, I don't blame them at all. They have Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, AJ Johnson, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, Will Riley, and even more. Surrounding those guys with real veteran talent like they've been doing is honestly a smart path for a team trying to build a winning culture again. Then there's the Dallas Mavericks, and not because they got the #1 overall pick, it's actually their addition of D'Angelo Russell. D'Lo's reputation has really gone down over the last few years because of how he's played in the playoffs, but he really is like the perfect holdover player while Kyrie is hurt. Although he cannot be trusted in the playoffs, he really can help you get through the regular season. He was actually really good in that 23-24 season up until the playoffs. Not only is he a good holdover guard, but he already has that experience playing with Anthony Davis. There's not really another guard that can give you the impact D'Lo can for under $6 million a year, and I think he's a really underrated pickup. Then there's the Lakers, who are decent winners. Yes, they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, but it opened up space for a few other moves. With that cap space, they were able to sign Jake LaRavia, who's pretty underrated in his own right, but they also lucked out and got DeAndre Ayton. I get Ayton has a ton of question marks, but let's be completely honest, that center market is kind of in the gutter. Getting a former #1 overall pick is much better than getting a 37-year-old Brook Lopez. He clearly looks pretty happy to be signing with them, and if he can turn it around, that's a massive signing, and they didn't have to give up anything to get him. But that's where I think I'll end the video. Those are my biggest winners so far, and who knows what could happen throughout the rest of the summer. There are still moves to be made for multiple teams though, and there's still some pretty valuable free agents out there. Shams told us this offseason was going to be incredible, so who knows, maybe something else will happen. But let me know who your biggest offseason winners are in the comments, and please leave a like to support the channel. Also subscribe if you're new for more basketball videos just like this one.